Alright guys, World Cup time, my final tournament in charge. Look, I want us to give this a really good crack, okay? And we've got the pot for opponent first in our group here in Ghana, okay? So we really need to win this game, okay? 3 points is an absolute must. Let's start this group off well and then just see what happens.
Party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 186 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you're doing well and coming today with the All Whites, just the All Whites these days, because of course no longer at Kashmir Tech. If you missed our last episode with those guys at the end of last week, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. But today we start off our last tournament of the save. It's the FIFA World Cup here in 2042 over in Germany with a Group D clash against the Pot 4 team in Ghana. So really, this is a game we need to be winning. And also, we're in Stuttgart. We can do some bus trips while we're over here in Germany. So if you're looking forward to that, do make sure to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, all that good stuff. But to start off today's episode, going to have a look at our squad going into this World Cup, because we did shuffle things up in a couple of positions, considering we are going to stick with that Indonesian tactic going into this tournament, seeing as it worked quite well in the couple of friendlies that we did play before that Champions League final last week. Those ones were against both the Ivory Coast and Senegal. We did seem to be a bit better than the previous window against Chile as well as Turkey. So that's the reason we're going to stick with it, and hopefully that should help us get out of what looks like actually a little bit of a tough group here in Group D for us at this World Cup, even though it's actually the first time we've been a Pot 1 nation at a World Cup. But let's run through our squad first. Thankfully, as you can see there, team news-wise, for both teams going to this one, there's no injuries, and that was also reflected in the team that we could pick going into this tournament. So thankfully, Michael Cornelius Beale, who was a bit of a concern in that last window, he was missing for that one, thankfully did recover from, I think it was a broken ankle or something. Thankfully, he's back for this tournament. That helps us out quite a bit in defensive midfield. And also Jamie Young, he's back and could play in this first game, but is just coming back from an injury that he copped while at Kashmir Tech. So Shaun Pearce, he will start in this first game at this World Cup. But as you can see, it looks pretty similar in most areas to what it was in that last window. For our first choice 11, the big changes do come in defensive midfield and also centre-back. So at centre-back, Hosaf is a pretty good ball-playing defender, as we know from Kashmir Tech, and did actually become eligible to play for the All Whites off back of that most recent window. So that does mean that Dylan Stubbings, he drops out of the team. Hosaf actually comes straight in as one of our better defenders, alongside Simon Kerr, seeing as these days are playing with those two ball-playing defenders with this tactic. So it does mean that Josh Wilson and Jiva Nathan are the backups. Otherwise, defensive midfield was the big change, because before we made that tactical switch last week, we were playing with a ball-wing midfielder as well as a deep-lying playmaker. These days, we're going with just two defensive midfielders. So it has meant that there's been a pretty significant shuffle up in our defensive midfield picking order here with the All Whites. Obviously, Cornelius Beale is still a really important player for us. He's just so well suited to anything as the Augsburg man. So to be fair, thankfully, he isn't to travel too far for this World Cup. But these days, the second in line in that area is Kenny Cowie. He's actually jumped above the likes of Sam Clark and our previous boarding midfielders of Marco Corona and Marcus Vinicius. So Kenny Cowie, who these days is still at Sydney FC, he'll start in our first choice 11 alongside Michael Cornelius Beale. And the backup midfielders, no sign of Corona or Vinicius, not really focusing on tackling. Instead, we're going with some more playmaking options with that change of role. So it does mean Sam Clark's still there alongside a newbie in Matt Tobin. He must have came for a youth intake not that long ago in this save, and somehow I missed him. But the 18-year-old from Sydney United actually does look quite decent in that role we are now using with this tactic. So he comes in to replace one of those two boys from Kashmir Technical, and also one of our extra spots here at this World Cup. Of course, we're allowed 26 players instead of 23. That goes to a midfielder who can also cover centre-back. That would be James Thomas from Sydney FC as well. He's 21 years old. He looks pretty decent as well, more so as a deep-line playmaker, but defensive midfielder, he's quite decent. As you can see, he can cover back at centre-back as well. So quite a good versatile option for us there as a midfield/defensive option. So those are our five midfielders we do have going into this tournament. No sign of Marco Corona or Marcus Vinicius, seeing as we did get rid of that balling midfield role. If we change tactics, that could come back to bite us quite a bit if this one does struggle in the early stages of this group, because there's a bit of a tricky group. And in terms of our options up front, nothing too much changing there. Khaled, Greenidge, the first choice wingers. And behind that, we've got Aaron Grove and Mitchell Clout, George McDonald and Chris Jones. They're the strikers. The extra cover, though, we have taken into attacking positions. Finn Brown, obviously that injury with Jamie Young is a bit of a concern still, just coming back from that. So in case he re-aggravates that one, Finn Brown comes in, and also quite handy as he can also cover left wing. So Finn Brown from Kashmir Tech, he snuck his way into the squad. And just in case we get a striking injury, we've also brought in the Prince, who was formerly of Kashmir Tech in Kamalo, these days over at Al Fatih in Saudi Arabia. Probably won't get too much game time, but he's here just in case one of our strikers does pick up an injury. So that's our squad here for this World Cup. As I said, the big changes coming there in defensive midfield in particular. No sign of Corona or Vinicius. And of course, Hosafa coming in. That's quite a good addition from the time he spent there at Kashmir Technical. But able to go here with a pretty close to full strength first 11 for this first game. As I said, Shaun Pearce coming in for Jamie Young, coming back from that recent injury. And we're in Group D at this World Cup. We were the pot 1 nation. Norway were pot 2, Switzerland pot 3, and Ghana pot 4. So in theory, we've got the easiest game up first. We better make the most of it, otherwise we could be in trouble pretty early in our last tournament of this save. Ghana these days, they are down 43rd in the world. They've played a couple of friendlies before this World Cup, a loss to Mexico and a draw with Japan. If you're wondering how we got on, we did play that new tactic, obviously. 2-0 win over Mali, so hopefully that's a good sign going into this Ghana game, considering that Mali are of a pretty similar ranking. Also worth noting that Norway did beat them by a lesser margin than we did, so hopefully that shows we might be stronger than our group opponents in Norway as well. And off the back of that, we took on Austria and picked up a 1-0 win. Obviously, lots of bench impact in those games, made sure we can play all our players so they don't count for the world rankings or anything like that. But 2 wins, so I'm quite encouraged by that. To be for Austria, also we way down the rankings in 34th. That's a European opponent and an African opponent we've taken on leading into this tournament. Quite good considering that's what we're going to be doing here in these 3 games as well. But Ghana up first. They're down 43rd in the world. This is definitely the game that we need to be winning. Looks like their manager does like a 4-4-2. You can see that the world ranking history, they've been on the decline for a fair while now, so certainly not as good as they were even earlier this year. They've had a pretty significant ranking decrease there since April when this graph does start. Their key player is Daniel Salifu from Real Madrid, a 25-year-old who can play centrally, also do a bit of a job attacking right or midfield left. Does look like he is a pretty decent player. As well as that, they've got their vice-captain, that's Ibrahim Duncan over at Brentford, who's a bit of a defensive midfielder who can also go a bit more attacking, but does look like he might be a bit better in defensive midfield, albeit that tackling not too great. So to be fair, that might be an area where we do have an edge. And the captain is Caleb Donker of Nacional. Not too sure if that's the Nacional in Uruguay or somewhere else. We'll just check. In fact, it's one over in Portugal. But he is a right back come centre back, probably a centre back at 1.92 metres tall. Could be quite dangerous from aerial situations, but hopefully someone that we can handle. So this is the pot 4 team, so hopefully we can pick up a win here in our first game of the World Cup. Otherwise, might be a struggle coming up in tomorrow's episode, where we're going to take on both Norway and Switzerland, especially as this venue we are going back to for one of those games in tomorrow's episode. We're going to start off this World Cup here in Stuttgart. We're going to make sure we get lots of bus trips in here while we are doing one over in Germany, especially. It's been a little while now since we've done one, seeing as all our games of late at Kashmir Tech have been in Oceania at some stadiums that we are pretty used to. But we're on our way here to the MHP Arena in Stuttgart. So before we play our first game at this 2042 FIFA World Cup, let's sneak in a bus trip. And of course, we started out by finding a hotel here for our trip to Stuttgart. Now, first up, this isn't actually where we're going to stay. I just thought I'd highlight it because honestly, this looks pretty interesting. It's a houseboat. It's one of the closer options to the stadium. It looks pretty good. The ratings are 4.7 out of 36 reviews. Honestly, this Schifferhoy place might not be too bad. Bed and breakfast. Apparently can stay the night there. There's its website. Not really too suitable for the entire team, so that's the reason we're not staying there. But good to see. There's some interesting options over there in Germany. Hopefully one of our supporter crews there, they can pick that one up and have some fun on the water overnight. Hopefully don't get too drunk and do a man overboard thing if we pick up a win like we should in this game. But there's a houseboat that you can stay at there in Stuttgart, quite close to the stadium. Interesting bed sheets and whatnot as well that they've got there, captain's apartment, all sorts of stuff. But of course, we're not staying on a houseboat because we're a professional football team, and also FIFA are paying the bills. We can stay somewhere a little bit nicer. So we are going to the Hilton Garden Inn, Stuttgart Nectar Park, which is pretty much right next door to the stadium that we are playing at, but it's a Hilton, and it was the only thing nearby that did look good, so it's going to be an actually walking distance here to the stadium for this game that we are about to play, and also our last one in this group when we take on Switzerland. But it looks pretty decent. It's some interesting German architecture going on there, with it being quite long and narrow, but to be fair, I do think down the hotel there a little bit, there's also some food options, and it's pretty much connected to the stadium as well, so it's a nice location for us here in Stuttgart. There's a look at the inside of some of the rooms. You can do your work there if you need to. That could be quite good for me when I do the research on teams before these World Cup games. Nice little TV there in between the bed and the study, just in case I pull someone while over there in Germany. Not too sure if I should be doing that, but just in case. And there is some cafe / eating options in the remainder of the hotel. There's a gym, there's the reception. It looks pretty decent. So we're going to stay here at the Hilton Garden Inn, Stuttgart Nectar Park. And yeah, it's not the longest bus trip, this one. It's a 1-minute drive and a 2-minute walk. So this might be a bit short-changing you guys, but hopefully we can do something a bit more interesting tomorrow when we go to the Red Bull Arena in Leipzig, which is a bit funny because, of course, my next save looks like it is going to be a Red Bull save, so I might be shooting myself in the foot there if we want to do bus trips for that save, but hopefully get a bit of a long one in tomorrow when we do go to the Red Bull Arena. But this bus trip shouldn't take very long at all. We'll actually just take a quick look here at what's around this hotel. You can see the weird shape there, and down the hotel a bit more, there's a grill and something called the Palm Beach Stuttgart. We'll just see what that is. That's a restaurant inside of the hotel. So those are some eating options nice and nearby here to where we're playing. Across the road, I think that's a hockey stadium, and down the road, the entrance to the ground where VfB Stuttgart do play. So we'll start this bus trip here. I say bus trip, it doesn't really need to be a bus trip because obviously it's about 150 meters away from where we're staying. Within there, that's the hotel. On the side of the hotel looks like there's some photos of Stuttgart players. Might even be a bit of a merchandise shop there on the edge of the hotel. And there's one of the entrances into the ground. So to be fair, it might only be like a 20-meter walk from our hotel to the ground for this trip, for this game we're going to play, and also when we take on Switzerland later on in this group. But let's make our way down the road just a little bit and get to the proper entrance here to the MHP Arena as we make our way down the road ever so slightly. To be fair, there's quite a bit of traffic down here either side of the road. Must be quite a big crowd here wanting to see the equal 11th best team in the world. Nice ranking for us that we just got up to before that World Cup draw. I think that's the reason that we did sneak in to pot one, but there is the main entrance to the stadium. Some Mercedes-Benz advertising above it, a bit of a bridge there, which is a bit interesting. Not too high, so no trucks down here. Maybe the minibus isn't a good idea. That might be a reason that we should walk instead of drive. But there's the main entrance there to the stadium in Stuttgart. Now let's get a look at what things look like once we make our way through the front. And actually, before we even look at the inside of the stadium, I've just noticed here on the other side there is a good old sausage / meat restaurant. So that's another option we do have here near the hotel, near this ground here we are playing / staying. But here's what it looks like on the inside of the stadium. To be fair, there's these turf management things that are all over the ground. So it's a bit hard to see what things do look like all around the stadium, but to be fair, they can be fancy over there in Germany. They've actually got some quite decent stadiums. But here's what it looks like here at the home of Stuttgart. Here's where the players walk out of. Hopefully we can do that and then pick up a win in this first game of the World Cup. Otherwise, going to be in a bit of trouble with 2 European teams coming up off back of this one. But you can see some good shaded seats there for all the fans. So even if it rains, they'll be okay. But hopefully we get some decent weather at this World Cup on this day. It does look like it was quite a nice one. There's a couple of old ladies taking photos and some people checking out the dugouts on the tour. But it's a decent little stadium here in Stuttgart, as you expect for a team who, of course, are in the Bundesliga. This one taken all the way back in 2014. So to be fair, it might have been improved on since then. Not too sure. We'll just go over here and have a look if we get a better picture of things. And indeed, this is one that's a bit more recent when the ground is packed out. They're a little bit away from the ground itself on these seats, but thankfully, unlike some stadiums that we did see back at the Club World Cup in Turkey, nice and close to the ground if you're near the front there. Nice rectangular shape of stadium, which is quite good, at least in terms of the seating. Not the big athletics track around the outside, which does mean you feel like you're a million miles away, but this one does look like it seats a fair few people here in Stuttgart, and this is going to be our home for 2 games, as I said, in this group. So hopefully we can make it a nice venue for us here with a win in our first one when we take on Ghana. And here are the team sheets for our first game at this 2042 FIFA World Cup. As we ran through before, it's our best 11, just Pearson there in central attacking midfielder, with Young just coming back from that injury. There are Ghana, their pre-tournament form not too great, and they're going with a 4-4-2, the pot 4 team. So this really is the game that we need to win before we have those tougher clashes coming up tomorrow against the European nations.
Yeah.
And less than 10 minutes into our tournament opener, it's a disastrous start. Our star player, our star striker, George McDonald, is forced from the field with a red injury. Hopefully, it's not a tournament ender. Hopefully, we can replace him, but that is a big blow. Early Chris Jones these days of Everton, he comes on for McDonald, but just past the 15-minute mark so far. Pretty even game, but now I'm a bit concerned how this might go with no George McDonald, especially if that's a serious injury. And off the back of that, a really poor pass there and a tackle, a bit of a sandwich there, and Ghana get on the counter-attack, and they get him behind, but thankfully, that chance when it was one-on-one with Cifuentes, they don't take, they spray it wide. So a big chance there for Ghana to kick us while we're down off the back of that injury to George McDonald. Off the back of that, they pump that one deep. We win the header, but give the ball straight back to them, and Akwe, he gets in behind Mustafa. Big back pass there to Agyemang, and it goes back out there to Laria, who is, it looks like, their left back. Now they play it forward, and Akwe does get in behind. Very similar chance to before. Our defence at the moment looking a bit shaky, but thankfully that one comes off the woodwork. So Ghana off back of that injury to our captain, George McDonald, have been on the front foot, but thankfully we are now down the other end. Beal on the ball, but it's a poor pass there from our senior player in the midfield. Not what we want to see from the Augsburg man. So Ghana here, well and truly on the front foot in these highlights we've seen so far in this game, but thankfully they pump that one too deep. We win it in the air, but then a really poor pass there from Carl there looking for Shaun Pearce, and Ghana can get back on the ball. They pick out Osei there down their right-hand side, but good tracking back there from Chris Greenidge to get us back on the ball. Good short passing, and Chris Jones, he cuts out to the left-hand side. Let's see what he can do coming on for George McDonald. Now Beal will try and put that one in the top right corner. Goes close, but just like the Ghana chances, that one is slightly off target. So far, we've got more shots than Ghana, but none on target. As I say that, we eventually get one, but hopefully that George McDonald injury won't hurt our finishing in this game. That's definitely now a concern, and Prince Kamalo might get more game time than I was anticipating, but thankfully, 10 minutes shy of halftime, a throw in there inside the final third. Shaun Pearce, he picks out Chris Jones, and the Everton man puts that one away in the bottom left corner. Maybe don't need to worry quite so much about that injury to our captain, but good work there from Pearce to find Jones, who buries that one in the bottom left corner. 10 minutes shy of half-time, we take a 1-0 lead. And only a few minutes off the back of that opening goal, we are now down the other end here for a free kick to Ghana, who today are in the all-white. If you couldn't tell, even though we're the all-whites today, we're in the all-black, but thankfully win that ball back, and some good short passing there does let us get on the counter-attack. Shaun Pearce, who got the assist for that opening goal to Chris Jones. He plays the ball out there, Negan Kuru back in there for Beal, who ranges out right. Let's see what he can do. Is being marked pretty tightly, but fizzes one there into the mixer, and Shaun Pearce gets brought down. So Pearce doing some good work for us here in this game. We have to check to see if VAR does think it's a penalty. It is. Pretty poor work there from Ghana, because no chance he was going to score from an angle that tight. But Pearce now with a chance to put one away, and he goes close to straight down the middle, maybe a little bit to left, but Shaun Pearce has been really good for us in central attacking midfield since coming in to this all-white squad. Probably, based on form, deserves to actually be starting over Jamie Young anyway, but attribute-wise, Jamie Young is still better, but Shaun Pearce, having not been recently injured, does get the first start for us at this World Cup, gets an assist, and now gets his goal after earning us that penalty. So 2-0 up, just shy of half-time. So thankfully, at the moment, that injury to George McDonald not proving too costly. We'll have to see how costly it might be, though, off the back of this game. Hopefully, if it's too bad, we can call in a replacement. Nice ball over the top there, though, from Chris Greenidge to Chris Jones to potentially make it 3-0, albeit do think the assistant referee there, near where our players are celebrating, did raise his flag, and unfortunately, that is the case. The Lamptey gets beaten again, but it won't count. It's just 2-0, but it's done to really cook here with this tactic in the second part of this first half. Indeed, Jones is a good stride or two offside. Make our way to the last couple of minutes here of this first half off the back of a pretty strong Ghana opening, especially off the back of us losing our captain. They had some big chances, probably could have scored 2 goals, but thankfully, off the back of that, they've done not much, and we went down the other end and got our goals through Jones and Pearce, albeit that second one was from the penalty spot. Just looking out there, and everyone's doing a decent job so far. Don't think any changes needed going into the second half with a 2-0 lead. And we're just made our way 10 minutes into the second half. A couple of players out there are just going fairly on a 6.5. In fact, now one of them's picked up a yellow card in Wiley Khaled. So we'll make some subs here. Cowie can come off for Sam Clark, and Wiley Khaled, let's take him off on that yellow card, not do anything silly with a 2-0 lead. Aaron Grove can come on for him. Still 2 goals in front with just over a half hour left. And only a couple minutes on from those subs that we did make. Now we'll go a throw in here near enough to the halfway line, but doesn't take us long here to start to camp inside of the opposition half these days with that high defensive line. Thankfully, looking a bit more solid now than we did off the back of the first couple of highlights where Ghana were on the front foot. We pick out Adam White here, absolutely does his man there and puts it into the mixer, and Chris Jones will get himself on a hat-trick. Maybe. George McDonald getting injured wasn't the worst thing for this game. I say that it could be really bad, though, if he's out for a long time. Let's hope we can actually bring in a replacement if it's too serious. But good work there from White. Absolutely stands up his man. They try Mark Greenidge there at the near post. No one gets the ball, though, and Chris Jones can put that one away with a simple tap. And off the back of that, Shaun Pearce has dropped down to a red heart. So we'll take him off. Jamie Young can come on, build up that match sharpness, because that is pretty poor at the moment. Good chance for him to get some minutes under his belt. And also, let's take off here probably Michael Cornelis-Beale, who was also a bit of a risk going into this tournament. Probably a smart idea to take him off while we're here with this final stoppage. Matt Tobin, let's give him a proper debut in our World Cup opener off the back of taking a 3-0 lead. And a few minutes on from that third goal in our last couple of subs, another throw in for us here, pretty similar position to the other side of the field, which we scored from this time. The Nkuru puts that into the mixer. Grove there, I think, got a touch on it. The shot got blocked. It fell back out there. That might have been for Chris Greenidge, looping header there pretty safely into the hands of Lamptey and goal there for Ghana. Still at 3-0, but it's getting quite late now in the last 15 minutes of this game. Stats-wise, you can see we've been pretty dominant in the second half of this one, kicking away off the back of that strong opening that Ghana made off back of that McDonald injury. But another highlight here, we make our way pretty smartly into the opposition half. Curtis plays that back to Hosafa, who is on a yellow card. Yellow card management could be quite big at this World Cup, so hopefully don't pick up too many. Nice ball in there again. I think that was for Chris Greenidge, and again the shot gets blocked. Now it falls back out to Grove, who takes on a shot, but that one straight into the path of Lamptey. So still 3-0, but the second half, we're definitely getting on the front foot here against Ghana, so it's going to be a pretty comfy win, it looks like, in our opening game of this group. But to be fair, that's what you'd expect, considering this is the Pot 1 nation against the Pot 4 nation. So really did need 3 points from this game. Thankfully, we are going to pick that up, albeit Ghana do win the ball back here in the 89th minute and get on the attack. Ekwe does get in behind that time. I think it was on target, but David Cifuentes comes up with a big save. Indeed, his rating jumps up from a 6 point something to a 7.1. Let's see if they can do something here from the subsequent corner. They go far post, but there, I think that was Curtis who headed that one away, and we make our way deep into 4 minutes of added time. And it's a good start to our tournament here with the All Whites. The match momentum was completely in our favour, even though the first couple of highlights we saw, we probably should have conceded. Ghana had some good chances to get in front, but thankfully they couldn't hit the target. And the 2 shots on target they had, David Cifuentes, he pulled off saves. And when we got down the other end, goals to Chris Jones, one in the first half and one in the second, helped out as well by a Shaun Pearce penalty. It's a pretty comfy win on the opening match day of this World Cup. 3-0 over Ghana. Let's now go forward and see how bad the injury is to our captain, George McDonald. So a good start to our World Cup campaign here with the All Whites 3-0, but it might have come at a cost. Let's just see how bad the injury was to George McDonald. Chris Jones did do quite well getting a double when he did come on, but certainly not ideal. Apparently, It's a damaged Achilles tendon, it says there in the match report. Let's see how bad this could be. It doesn't say there, and apparently he's going to miss the rest of the tournament through injury. He'll be out for 5 months, and we can't even call up a replacement. Oh dear, that is a big blow. George McDonald, if you're not familiar with him, you should be by this point, because really he's one of the best new gens we've had come through in this save, even though that was from the Wellington Phoenix. He's at Al Waider over in Saudi Arabia. He's really good. Oh dear, the Nelson lad, our captain, he won't feature anymore at this World Cup and won't feature in this save anymore, which is a real bummer because he is one of our star players, our captain. Oh dear, that makes things a bit interesting in terms of the remainder of the tournament, albeit striker is quite a strong position. We do have Chris Jones, who did quite well in that game you just saw. Also, Prince Kamalo, thankfully, did include him in the squad because now he could actually get quite a bit of game time. And also, we've got Mitchell Clout, who can play left wing. He's also a striking option. So actually, Finn Brown, not the worst selection either off the back of that injury, but Mitchell Clout, our backup left winger, can also do a pretty good job up front as well. So thankfully, it's an injury in an area where we do have a fair amount of cover. Just ability-wise, it's one of our better players. So that is a big blow off the back of an opening win, and especially with our next 2 games coming up tomorrow, looking a lot tougher when we take on Norway, that one from the Red Bull Arena. So there'll be a bus trip before that one, which I imagine will be in Leipzig when we take on the 20th best team in the world. And off the back of that, we're back to Stuttgart to take on Switzerland, who are 28th in the world. So some tricky games coming up tomorrow against European opponents, and with no George McDonald, that could be interesting, but thankfully have picked up 3 points from our opening game at this World Cup. We'll update how things finish in that Switzerland-Norway game when we come back for tomorrow's episode, but a quick update on how the first 3 groups did get on off the back of the opening match day. Venezuela and Germany, they picked up wins. Germany 2-1 over Saudi Arabia and Venezuela 2-0 over the Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast, that's a bit of a shock for those guys. A team who, when we took them on before the tournament, were up in the top 20 of the world rankings. Group B, Portugal 1-0 over Honduras. That scoreline a bit tight. Australia, that's a bit of a disappointing result for them though. A 2-2 draw against South Africa. So it does mean Portugal on top. Aussie and South Africa, they are joined on a point each. And down to Group C, England, they pick up a win as you'd expect. 3-0 over Egypt. But Croatia, they got held to a draw by Guatemala. So another bit of an upset there in a game in one of the groups that has also taken place so far. So England are on top. Croatia and Guatemala, they are joint on a single point. Guatemala now might have a sneaky chance if they can somehow pick up a win over Egypt in what will be their last game off the back of a clash coming up next time against England. But I think that will do it for today's episode. Quick run for our squad for this World Cup, and we pick up a 3-0 win to kick things off over Ghana. But a bit of a blow there with that injury to George McDonald. He's out for the entire tournament. But if you enjoyed this one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. As I said, tomorrow we'll come back and play the 2 European teams from our group in Norway and Switzerland. Also do a bus trip to the Red Bull Arena, which indeed is in Leipzig, because we're doing a Red Bull save off the back of this one. But until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.